We're here on Rational Radio talking Pennsylvania budget.
Oh yes, something that has been going on for quite some time now. Governor Wolf desperately trying to get a budget passed through the Pennsylvania legislature, but unable to do so. Now joining us on the phone, a writer for the Philadelphia Inquirer, Chris Palmer. Chris, thanks for being with us here on Rational Radio.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So talk a little bit about this latest budget attempt to push it through, some of the reasons for it kind of stalling out in the House.
Sure. So for months, Governor Wolf has been saying that he wants to increase education funding throughout the state, but in order to do so, he needs to raise some taxes. And one of the taxes they wanted to raise, for example, was the personal income tax. Another was a tax on natural gas drilling. Republicans in the legislature who control both the House and the Senate have said that's not going to make it through. And yesterday, they finally put their money where their mouth was and said, we'll put it up for a vote in the House. They said they allowed Governor Wolf to talk to anyone in the legislature that he wanted to, Republicans, Democrats, to try and convince them to vote for his proposal. He needed 102 votes to pass it, and in the end, he came about 29 votes short. It failed 127 to 73. There were no Republicans who voted for it. 9 Democrats also voted against it. It leaves the budget situation, which is now today on its 100th day overdue, kind of at a standstill. No one really knows what the next step is. Both sides have said they're going to go back to the bargaining table, but the question remains where exactly those negotiations are going to start.
Yeah, ultimately something that will need to be decided. What are some of the long-term impacts of not having a budget in place?
Sure. So there's no official document that describes how the state should spend its money. So it's not giving out money to school districts, to nonprofits, a lot of whom depend on state funding, if not for their entire budget, for a significant portion of it. So school districts, we've heard, are starting to have to wonder whether they're going to have to borrow money. Some nonprofits have already started having to do that. And as the longer this drags on, the tougher it's going to be for a lot of those organizations. Some of them get, again, significant portions of their revenue from the state, and the state just can't give it out now. It's against the law to do it without a budget.
Yeah, so looking through some of these things, we see that Governor Wolf is really passionate about education. Ran on the platform that he was going to tax the natural gas drillers in the state. Are those issues that you've seen him kind of unwilling to budge on, saying that they have to be included in the final budget that's passed?
I don't think either side has said ironclad one thing has to be in there, has to be not. I think what's clear is that Governor Wolf's top priority is education funding. That's what he campaigned on. He won the election by 10 points on the fact that he was going to restore funding to the schools. So while he, I guess, wouldn't say that there's a non-starter, it's hard to imagine him approving a budget that didn't have a big spike in education. Republicans on the other side have, again, basically come out and said that taxes aren't something that we're going to really give in on. Income tax, I think, is a bigger deal for them. They don't want to give in on that. They've indicated a little more willingness to consider some kind of tax on natural gas drilling. But I think it's clear that, again, Governor Wolf's priority is making sure that there's additional money that can go to the schools. Republicans, one of their big priorities has been that they don't want to raise taxes, and that's kind of where you're seeing these two sides, really butt heads.
And have you, in just doing reporting on this story, have you spoken to any Republicans out there who have just outwardly said that they won't appropriate the amount that Governor Wolf wants for education?
Well, I think what Wolf has said is that in order to appropriate the amount that he wants, they're going to need more revenue. They're going to need to raise taxes, and there are a lot of Republicans. There were, hundreds of them yesterday who just soundly rejected the idea that the money that Wolf wants to give to schools are going to come from the tax increases that he wants to. Now, there are other ways potentially that you could raise revenue in order to get to the number of the amount of money that Wolf wants to give to schools. You might be able to sell off liquor stores or find savings in other departments. But Wolf's initial plan was to try and raise income taxes along with a few others and give that money to schools. And I think yesterday's vote was evidence that Republicans are not on board with that version of it. They're not going to allow that kind of money to be the money that's going to fund schools.
And I know earlier it was being talked about possibly tying this to the privatization of the liquor stores. Is that still on the table? Do we know, or?
Yeah, it's certainly not off the table. I think, again, yesterday's vote was kind of focused on property taxes and the natural gas taxes. I think now the question becomes, how are the sides going to push and pull to try, what's the revenue number they're going to want to try and generate, and how are they going to try and generate it? At some point, there's going to have to be negotiations about where the money comes from, and that could include liquor privatization. It could include some version of pension reform. It could include some kind of tax. That's what legislators in the governor's office are going to trying to work out here as this budget impasse drags on.
And so, just going forward, do we see this budget process being resolved anytime soon?
I wish I had an answer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, I talked to the governor's office today. They said they have no negotiations currently scheduled. That's not totally unusual, since the end of the week is a slower time for them. But, yeah, I don't know. I think, you've seen both sides kind of dig in here and make clear that they're not going to just blindly accept what the other side proposes. I think there's some precedent in these negotiations too, right? Governor Wolf is a first-term Democrat. He was elected with a big majority. If he gives in here, there's the potential that the Republicans feel like they're going to have the upper hand moving forward. The Republicans, I think, at the same time are trying to make sure that they, make their priorities clear and don't give in too easily to a governor. There's a lot at play. I think my gut would tell me that means that it's not going to come to an end anytime, within the next couple days here.
Yeah.
But at some point, this budget's going to have an impact on a lot of people out there. The longer it drags on, you would figure that's going to give them some urgency.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what, I've been thinking here. I mean, especially being here at Temple, one of the universities that does receive some sort of funding from the state. I mean, just looking at it, I feel like as if, if I were governor, I would just be working as hard as I can to just try and get some people to the table to vote and say, maybe, all right, I'll give up some of these issues, but these are definitely staying in. See if we could just drum up at least some sort of consensus.
Yeah, and I think what you saw yesterday they basically had a week before this vote to try and determine who was going to vote for it, and the majority leader in the House said that Governor Wolf was pulling people into his office as debate was happening on the floor, trying to get them to switch their vote. I don't know that anyone's questioning how hard both sides are trying to lobby. I think it just comes down to, in some ways, ideology and politics. They have different sets of beliefs on what they want to accomplish, and there hasn't been an ability to bridge the gap for either side at this point.
Yeah, so hopefully we will see some sort of action come soon. Chris Palmer, writer for The Inquirer. Chris, thanks so much for joining us here on Rational Radio.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So great discussion there. I mean, just the inability to pass a budget. I mean, you heard him say that they've been talking, Governor Wolf pulling people aside during debate on the House floor.
That's crazy.
That's initiative. That's showing that he wants it done. He wants it done. He's not just pushing this off. He's working hard. He's working his own way. It just shows that he really, plain old, wants to get it done.
Yeah.
Partisanship's not going to let that happen.
No.
And he ran on the platform. He said, "No, don't worry about the legislature. I'll be able to work with them." Okay, well,
yeah,
work with them. We're not. I mean, that's not happening.
Waiting for it.
I mean, because especially as we see this just complete kind of polarization of politics. I mean, you saw this. Republicans, not a single one voted for the budget, and even a couple Democrats came over to the Republican side and voted against the budget. So, I mean, people from his own party are saying no.
Right.
I mean,
if you don't have back from your own party, I don't know what he put in the budget exactly, but there's got to be something he can find that he can change up a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, like an increased revenue for school districts. We were just what we were talking about for 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Right.
Wouldn't that be a good way to solve this problem?
Yeah.
Very true.
It would.
Very nice.
Like that would that would be a really, quick, easy fix. Obviously not like as quick and easy as we're making it sound here, but it would be certainly a step in the right direction.
And Chris mentioned it. He said that there are entities that are dependent on this money, and he mentioned school districts. And when school districts pass their budget, I mean, they budget with the intent to receive X amount of funds from the state. And then you're just saying, all right, function on not this much money, less than this. It's not like we over budgeted and now you're only going to have this much. It's you budgeted this and now you're less than that.
Oh, yeah. I remember, I think it was 2 years ago, our school district kind of got the underside of that, where we built new buildings for our school district with the understanding that the state was going to pay for it. And we spent several $100,000 on new buildings, and then after building them, it was taken out of the budget for the state. We didn't get any of the funding, and then the school district had to cover all those hundreds of thousands of dollars that came from that new construction and had to find somewhere to take it from. And so they cut programs. They got rid of like our fall play. Some sports programs were reduced in funding. Students were losing all of this opportunity, and that's because of this lack of funding from the state.
That's a crazy amount of money.
And how can you do that? Because then it's impacting other things beyond, just the school. It's saying, all right, nope. No fall play. Sorry, we built these buildings. We thought we were getting the money, and then I mean, how does that work? I mean, it's insane just to think that they can't. There is so much in that budget that they won't come to common ground on. I mean, now you heard him say that the Republicans are warming to the idea of taxing the natural gas drillers, which is something when he was running that they said they were vehemently opposed to.
Right. It's progress. Progress is progress. They're taking itty bitty, tiny baby steps, but
they're tiny steps, all right.
Their hands are trying to meet in the middle,
and some of the steps are backwards, but progress is progress. Hopefully they'll get it done.
Hopefully is right. I mean, I don't know. Like I feel like if I was the governor, I would say that, all right, guys, we're doing this around the clock. Let's go. We're doing this. We're going to get a budget hammered out. I don't care how long it takes. And that's just, I feel like being like a leader. Like, you heard him say it's kind of like slow for the rest of the week. Well, why is it slow? Let's go. Let's get people in the room talking to each other.
Yeah, they're deciding the fate of our state.
Right. I mean, there are people that are depending on this money, and he said, no. The end of the week is wide open. Yeah, if you want to come in, feel free.
It's crazy.
We don't have a budget. Let's go. Like, I don't know. Am I making this sound simpler than it is? Maybe.
It may be a little bit, but at the same time, you're making a valid point.
I mean, what do you say? It's in its 100th day? Over that? Since the fiscal year begins July 1.
Mm-hmm.
And it's too long.
Yeah.
Long and the short of it, it's too long. This needs to happen. Let's go.
Yeah. I don't know. Why don't they tune into Rational Radio and listen to what we had to say? We're going to bring someone on here and just keep every single day, and we're going to ask them just pass that budget. I mean, because there are people like Temple that are dependent on state funds, provided funds. I mean, they're like I was talking to someone in the budget office here at Temple, and they were saying that they have a plan in place to deal with whether or not they come in with the amount that Governor Wolf is wanting to appropriate versus the amount that they think they will get. But if they ultimately don't get the amount that they're projecting to receive, they're going to have to come up with other cost-cutting measures. And they said they're going to try strategic budget initiatives to reduce costs and reduce the impact on students. But he said ultimately, it could come down to a tuition increase.
Wow.
Or it could come down to cutting fun programs like WHIP Radio.
And
that would be really heartbreaking.
Yeah. Think about it. They're going to they're looking for ways they can just cut it down. And, no student wants to hear tuition increase.
No one wants tuition increase. No one wants WHIP to go away.
That's true. Both of those are
both
true. Yeah.
Facts of life.
And we want our own football stadium. 3 things on the table.
That would
Let's
be
go.
nice.
I don't know. I like the link.
Well, you can't get any money to build. If they don't pass a budget, then we're not getting any money to build a football stadium unless we're taking it out of like the rainy day fund.
Yeah, bottom of the line.
The rainy day fund. Let's just take a couple $1 million out of the rainy day fund and build a football stadium.
I don't think that's what they're going to do. But I don't know. I don't see why they can't just come together and put. I'm not saying compromise on everything. Like, I'm not saying, Republicans have to throw out their whole agenda and Democrats need to throw out theirs. I'm saying let's just, like, give a little. Republicans say, all right, we're going to, I don't know, we'll take the, put a little bit more of a tax on gas drillers. Or I should say a tax because they're not currently taxed right now. So put that on. And the Democrats say, okay, thanks. We appreciate that. Well, we won't raise property taxes. Okay, cool. There are 2 issues. We just solved 2 issues right there.
2016.
That's right. There we go. Like, I mean,
running on that.
And now it's obviously more complicated than that because the representatives are catering to their constituencies. But we have to remember, I mean, once it passes the House, it still has to pass the Senate. And then if they pass an amended bill, then it goes back to the House and they need to, like, reconcile them. And then he'll eventually sign it. So, I mean, this is like a lengthy process.
Yeah, we've got a ways to go.
I mean, I'm hoping that we get to December and we're still not talking about this.